Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a senior professional, a researcher, or a founder, we really need to completely reframe how you're thinking about immigration. Honestly, it's time to stop looking at it as this massive bureaucratic headache or just a single agonizing wait in line. Because in 2026, immigration is a strategic portfolio. Think about it. You wouldn't dump all your retirement savings into one single highly volatile stock, right? So why on earth would you tie your entire global career to just one country's visa system? Today, we're going to break down a purely data-driven strategy to diversify your residency options across the US, the UK, and Australia, giving you the ultimate global optionality. Okay, let's dive into this. Before we actually build out the strategy, we have to tackle the absolute biggest psychological barrier that's holding professionals back right now. The immediate question almost everyone asks me is simply, is this actually legal? Am I literally allowed to apply for permanent residency in the US, the UK, and Australia at the exact same time? Well, the answer is a massive, definitive, resounding yes. There's absolutely no international treaty, no US law, no UK immigration rule, and no Australian regulation that stops you from running these pathways simultaneously. None. The top-tier talent out there, they aren't waiting around anymore. The professionals who understand how to leverage these systems simultaneously are making major life decisions from a position of genuine independence. Meanwhile, unfortunately, their peers are just stuck in these single-country bottlenecks that can take literally decades to sort out. So we've got a structured masterclass playbook mapped out for the rest of this explainer. We'll hit 5 key areas. 1, the single-country risk. 2, breaking the intent myth. 3, the evidence overlap map. 4, choosing your strategy stack. And finally, number 5, the golden rule. Let's get right to it. Section 1, the end of single country visas. Here's exactly why 2026 absolutely demands diversification. Relying on just one country is an incredibly risky bet right now. Converging forces have totally changed the game. For example, the US recently announced this massive $100,000 H-1B entry fee for new holders. That essentially skyrockets the cost of maintaining US status and is already pushing top talent toward countries with way less immigration overhead. But it's not just policy changes, it's also adjudication trends. That number, 35.7%, is a huge wake-up call. That is the US EB2 NIW approval rate as of Q4 in fiscal year 2025. For the first time ever, more of these petitions were actually denied than approved. USCIS is applying much, much stricter standards. If you are banking your whole life on this single US pathway, you're banking on a process with very real mathematical uncertainty. Simply put, single country applications are practically obsolete. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast between these systems today. You've got the US EB2 NIW sitting there with that highly volatile 35.7% approval rate. Then, over in Australia, their National Innovation Visa Expression of Interest invitation rate is hovering at a mere 6.6%, meaning that process is inherently unpredictable. But then, check out the UK. The UK Global Talent Visa research route is sitting on an absolutely incredible 87 to 90% success rate. By combining these applications, you effectively hedge your bets. You offset the high volatility of the US and Australia with a very high probability of the UK. Moving on to Section 2, breaking the intent myth and managing what is essentially an illusion of conflict. We really need to dismantle this fear of intent conflict. You know that nagging worry that applying to 3 different countries somehow implies you're disloyal and will automatically get you rejected? So the crucial point is understanding the massive gap between what people perceive intent to be versus what legal intent actually is. A lot of professionals think intent means you're swearing an exclusive, lifelong blood oath to one single nation. But in practice, it simply means you genuinely intend to work in your field in that specific country. Filing a US I-140 doesn't legally require you to declare the US is your only destination on Earth. The UK Home Office and the Australian Department of Home Affairs operate in their own silos. They do not cross-check, and frankly, they do not care about other applications. And hey, if you happen to currently be in the US on a visa, you absolutely need to understand the power of dual intent visas. We're talking about categories like the H-1B, L-1, and O-1. These are explicitly designed by law to let you actively pursue a green card while safely holding onto your temporary status. Filing a US immigrant petition creates zero conflict with maintaining those non-immigrant statuses. And throwing a UK or Australian application into the mix, that doesn't violate a single USCIS rule either. You are totally legally protected while you build out your global portfolio. Section 3, the evidence overlap map, how to use one professional profile across 3 completely different systems. Now, what's really interesting about this is that it's the absolute core engine of our multi-country strategy. The real magic here is realizing you don't have to build three entirely separate professional lives. Just think about the sheer amount of overlap. Your peer-reviewed publications, your competitive grant funding, your named awards, these are the exact primary currencies that are evaluated across all three major merit-based systems. Your evidence doesn't somehow lose its value in one system just because you use it in another. For instance, a grant from the Wellcome Trust. That perfectly proves your UK eligibility, your US national importance, and your Australian international recognition all at once. You do the hard work of building this evidence once, and then you just deploy it globally. Now, while your core factual achievements overlap perfectly, each country does have one unique procedural wrapper that you'll need to sort out. For the US, you'll need to craft a proposed endeavor narrative that specifically addresses US national importance. For the UK, they want a personal statement that clearly articulates your connection to the UK professional landscape. And for Australia, you're going to need a Form 1000 nominator, which is basically a recognized Australian expert who formally endorses you. But keep in mind, these are really just different narrative wrappers being placed around the exact same set of underlying facts. All right, Section 4, choose your strategy stack. This is all about executing the playbook. Let's move into the execution phase. Depending on what your specific career profile looks like, you can deploy your assets in strategic stacks to get maximum global independence. Option 1 is basically the ultimate hedge, the full triple stack. This means filing for the US EB2 NIW, the UK Global Talent Visa Endorsement, and the Australian National Innovation Visa Expression of Interest, all at the exact same time. This is truly the gold standard for senior professionals who want fast answers, minimal downside, and just absolute maximum optionality. Let's move to and see how this builds into a concrete real-world action plan. In week 1, you fire off your Australia expression of interest, mostly because it's completely free and takes like an afternoon to do. In month 1, you file your UK endorsement, which gets you an answer back in a speedy 4-8 weeks. And then, by month 2, you file your US EB2 NIW to firmly lock in your priority date. You're essentially setting off this incredible cascade of global options all within a tight 60-day window. Or if you happen to be an academic, you might want to pivot to what we call the researcher stack. Academic researchers are honestly the absolute ideal profile for parallel processing because things like publications, citations, and grants, they are the absolute perfect multi-country currency. And the timeline for this stack is wildly rapid. Say you have a qualifying UKRI grant. You can apply for the UK Fast Track endorsement and literally get a decision in just 2 weeks. Boom. Simultaneously, you drop your Australia expression of interest into the mix, and you file your US NIW based on that exact same research program. You can quite literally secure your freedom to work in the UK while simultaneously anchoring your spot in the US green card line. It's a game changer, and honestly, the return on investment here is just staggering. Building this massive, bulletproof optionality across the triple stack costs roughly $8,000 to $10,000 in year 1. The Australia EOI, $0. The UK endorsement and visa fees, under $2,000. The bulk of the cost is really just your US filing and legal fees, around $4,500. When you compare that to sitting around for decades in waiting lines, or that absurd $100,000 H-1B entry fee we talked about earlier, $10,000 for absolute global career freedom is literally the best strategic investment you can make. Finally, Section 5, the golden rule. Narrative consistency across all your applications. Okay, before you rush out and start filing everywhere at once, we need to have a serious talk about the one critical risk you have to meticulously manage. Every single application you submit tells a story. If your 3 stories have contradictory facts, you are introducing a huge amount of risk. Especially since USCIS can sometimes access your prior filings. You absolutely must have perfect consistency when it comes to verifiable dates of your publications or grants, the factual record of your career accomplishments, your exact employment status, and your listed job titles. So while you definitely need to customize the framing for each nation, pitching US national importance on one document and then pitching Australian benefit on another, your master factual record must remain rock solid. You can't call yourself an independent researcher on your UK application, but then suddenly claim to be an employed researcher in the US petition. You build one highly accurate master factual record, and you brief your attorneys in every single jurisdiction so that those underlying facts never ever contradict each other. And that brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? You have one highly valuable professional profile. There are 3 major global pathways actively competing for your talent right now. You are no longer at the mercy of a single immigration system's ridiculous backlogs or constantly shifting policies. This global competition puts you firmly in the driver's seat. So, which stack will you build to secure your own global optionality? Consider your profile, map out your evidence, and take complete control of your global future. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.